I wanna take all, make me who I wanna be, but it's all break me down to my elements, shaking out my irrelevance, advising me.
Me, it goes way back to when I was a little kid. I was raised in church. My parents were pastors, and I was raised in church till about 3rd or 4th grade, and everything was, you know, butterflies and fairy tales. And then my folks divorced. And it's when they divorced, it's when everything started sliding downhill for me. That's when I started questioning, well, my own parents don't even believe this stuff about God. You know, everything was, you know, before that I was always wanting to memorize scriptures in class and always involved and always there. At the time that the divorce happened, it really, you know, took the wind out of me. It really made me to where I had a lot of doubts, a lot of questions. So from that point, I mean, I was, you know, started getting high, smoking weed, you know, 4th grade, young kid, and it just escalated, and my life was totally upside down. Really got into the drugs and the alcohol, and you know, I was beating people up, you know, collecting drug debts, I was taxing, I was just involved in anything bad. And up until that point with God, it was all just kind of in the distance. It was something that, you know, deep down I really didn't know how bad I'd been hurt. But it just put a lot of, like, I had no hope. I didn't have any hope, and everything that I believed in the most just kind of fell by the wayside, you know. And I lived my life that way, and I was really suicidal. But I'd been taught as a little kid, you know. I mean, I'd been taught suicide is not the route to go, you know. And I knew better, but I can remember I would rob drug dealers, I would do things, and I would just be thinking, you know, hopefully, you know, somebody will put a bullet in my head and put me out of my misery. And you know, I would just think, but I'm not going to put my head on the chopping block for them.
Before Christ, I was a very lonely person, very broken. The only thing that I felt like I had to turn to was alcohol. And the road I was on was a very dangerous road. I felt like there was no one there for me. I felt completely alone in this crazy world with everything flying past me. And of course what I turned to was alcohol, and at the end of the day, it was still there. All the pain, all the hurt, all the guilt was still there. I had 2 kids out of wedlock, and that hung over my shoulders really heavy. And so I turned to alcohol, and even turned to unhealthy relationships, and still I was searching and searching and searching, and nothing was filling this hole. And it was just lonely and depressing, and I didn't feel like God was there, but I didn't take the time to ask God, where are you in this situation? The only thing I turned to was alcohol and unhealthy relationships, and I surrounded myself with people who were on the same route. I would go to bars and hang out there and spend my time there. I wasn't aware of just the options that were around me, that I could step out of it at any moment. So it was a really struggle for me, very lonely and very dark path that I was going on.
Six years ago, I was completely addicted to drugs, and my life was just spiraling out of control. I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I desperately wanted to quit, but I couldn't. And I just remember feeling like such a huge disappointment, like a failure. I just remember feeling so worthless and full of guilt and shame. Like I let myself get to the point where drugs were ruling me, and all I thought about first thing I did when I got up in the morning was get high, and in the afternoon on my lunch break, after work, in the evening, all day long, and this lasted for like 7 years. And I just remember I couldn't stop, and I was too afraid to ask for help. I was so afraid because I left my family down, I let my friends down, my employer, my coworkers, everybody who knew me. You know, they didn't see that part of me, of, you know, this dark person. And I just remember just trying to quit, and I couldn't. And I had enough of it, and I was like, this is it. I spiraled into a really dark depression, and where the only way I was going to quit is if I ended my life. So I I remember it was September 2005. I got home one night and I pulled my car into the garage and closed the door and just let my car keep running. And in my car, I had like a notebook or something, and I remember writing out my suicide letter and just writing and explaining to my family, like, knowing this is who I am and how sorry I was for letting him down, and I was just worthless and I wasn't deserving of love or life or anything, and I just couldn't handle it no more. And so that was it. I was going to take my life. And so I just sat in the car and my life was going to be over.
I wanna take all, make me who I wanna be, but it's all break me down to my elements, shaking out my irrelevances.